You wanna come up, lady? You wanna come up? Come on. Say hello to the camera. Look, lady. Look up there. Can you see the camera? Hello darlings, welcome back. I cannot believe how long it's been since I've made a video. The fact that last year I think I made one video, potentially two if you're counting the beginning of the year, and this year I've done a Christmas video in January and that's it. It's terrible. I'm aiming to do one video a month, hopefully from here on out. But anyway, what you're all here for is the wedding planning. It's been 6 months since James and I got married, and I can't believe that it's taken me this long to finally get around to doing this video. Planning our wedding was such a big deal. Planning any wedding is really big. But considering the fact that I gave myself so many things to do myself rather than getting someone else to do it for me, I feel like added a whole lot of stress. Even though it was really fun planning our wedding and the wedding was really beautiful, I am so glad I am not planning a wedding anymore and it's done, it's over, and we can enjoy our lives, because it does take a mental toll on you. And there was so much back and forth in planning the wedding. You would start a task and then have to stop it halfway and start another thing, because I chose to do so much DIY for the wedding, which definitely added a lot of extra stress. And hopefully I'm going to try and get through my giant list of the order in which things happened, because it's a little bit fuzzy now that it's been 6 months after the wedding. I haven't really had to have my wedding brain on. And you've probably just met Lady, who just introduced herself here. She's our new little puppy. She's actually 6 months old at the moment, but we got her halfway through January and it's just been so lovely having her in our lives. I didn't make any formal video introducing her, but there she is. She's a little Cocker Spaniel and we're just so besotted with her. We love her so much. Let's get into the wedding planning. I was gonna make it into a series and have multiple videos, but I think I'm just gonna smash it out in one video. I cannot be bothered to extend this for longer than it's already been. I'm just gonna make one big long video and you guys can enjoy it, and then I will share with you our wedding video. You're a good girl over there, lady. She's sleeping like a little angel. Ever since James and I got engaged back in 2023, it was on the most romantic camping trip. I knew I wanted to have a beautiful vintage style wedding. I've shared in a previous video where I talk about when James and I got engaged. My wedding ring is from the 1930s, late 1930s to 1940s. It's an Art Deco style ring. It's an illusion setting, so it's got the beautiful main diamond in the middle and then like the little 3 diamonds on either side. I was so happy that James chose that one. I had a couple on my list that I really liked and he got the perfect one. Pretty much immediately after we got back from the engagement camping trip, I went shopping and found the perfect little wedding planner. I'm someone that's very visual and I like to have like an idea of the progress that I'm making and things that I'm checking off my list. I don't like checking off things on my phone. I always make a physical list. I got this beautiful little wedding planner from Etsy, which I was really happy with. I was just very excited to fill it out gradually and create a little time capsule later of the planning that went into our wedding. And shortly after that, I started looking at 1940s wedding dresses online. I knew the 1940s was the style I wanted because the 50s dresses are beautiful, but because I'm quite a petite woman, I didn't want a big puffy dress. Because I'm shorter, I wanted something that was more on like a slim side and kind of like a straight down rather than a, what's the word? I didn't want to look like a big pom-pom and make me look even shorter than I am. One of the reasons that I wanted to find my dress online is because the style, the 1940s style that I was after, is not something that's made today. I mean, there are a couple of vintage reproduction companies that do make dresses, but I wanted something that was really special. My only resort was looking online, and I know that comes with its issues. You want to make sure that you're going to get the right size and that it's going to fit you because you're spending a lot of money on such an important dress. So yeah, I started searching on Etsy, looking on eBay. There were some beautiful dresses that needed a lot of repairs, so I could have paid a lot less, like a couple $100 for a dress, but because of the list that I was making in my head of all these things that I wanted to achieve for our wedding, I didn't really want to add making a wedding dress onto that list because I already had some ideas of other things that I was going to make. So I decided I wanted a vintage dress. I liked the 1940s style, and it was just a matter of narrowing that down to a couple of dresses that I liked. In the end, there were 2 dresses that I ended up choosing from. One had a really gorgeous neckline where it had like a sheer mesh on the top with some beautiful beading, intricate beading on the top. The only thing with this was the lady that was selling this dress on Etsy had 0 reviews, no other listings, and you know, the price was I think around $700, a bit over $700, and I just didn't feel like I was willing to gamble on paying that much money and not knowing whether the seller was legit, whether I'd end up getting a dress. And I know that's maybe terrible because, you know, everyone needs to start somewhere, and you know, you should help people out by purchasing items. So I just didn't want to gamble on something that was so much money. And on that note, I'd kind of decided from looking at all the different dresses that $700 was going to be my budget, because that seemed like a good in between for a beautiful dress, no alterations needed, and I really didn't want to muck around with altering the dress. And then the other option that I really liked was a beautiful 1940s style again, but it had more of a gathered bust, and it was beautiful. It had a really nice waist on it. It was really unique, and I hadn't seen any other dresses like it. The gathered bust was like very traditional 1940s, and that was the look that I was going for. I think it was just under $700, and I was like, perfect, this is it, this is the dress, I'm gonna get it. This is way too stressful. Etsy always gives you little reminders like, it's almost sold, better get it even though it's in your cart, someone else could get it. It's so scary because for such a big and important purchase like this, I would always want to ask James, like, what do you think? But I can't show James this dress because obviously he can't see it. So I'm just gonna make this decision. I'm gonna get it. $695, here we go. Continue to review order. Submit your order. Wait, why? $69 GST. What? I was thinking I was so good with my budget. I was gonna be under, it was gonna be like $700. $764.50 because of GST. Oh well, I've come this far. I may as well submit. Oh my gosh, I did it. I've ordered. Ah! I've got my wedding dress in this bag. I think it was delivered at the end of January, and it's just been waiting here in our new place. And I haven't opened it yet, so I'm gonna open it now. I'm a bit nervous and excited to try this on, and yeah, I just want to make sure that if there are any adjustments that I need to make, that I know what they are, and that I've got more than enough time to finish it before the wedding. Nice. Oh my gosh. Oh my, oh my gosh, I love it. Oh my gosh. I have to take it up. I have to take the dress up. But oh my gosh, it couldn't be more perfect. It fits me like a glove. A beautiful subscriber, I think it was about 2 years ago, sent me a beautiful wedding dress. I think it was her great aunt's, and it was, I think, a wedding dress from the 1930s, and then a beautiful, like, the going away dress. So beautiful. I loved the going away dress. The going away dress was a bit too big for me. I did want to alter it and potentially wear it for the wedding, but in the end, when we left, we weren't going straight to the honeymoon after, so I didn't end up wearing that. But I am very, very excited to alter that and wear that for, like, you know, some sort of dinner party or something, because it's a really, really beautiful dress. And the 1930s wedding dress was apparently very ahead of the time and was very modern for the 1930s, so it was a bit controversial. I think now, looking back at that dress, you know, you don't think too much of it. You didn't think, oh gosh, that's really controversial for a wedding dress. So that was a really fun thing to hear. I feel so, so lucky that that beautiful subscriber sent that to me. Because I was looking for a dress that had a train on it for the wedding, I didn't end up going with that dress that she sent me, but I will keep it for another special occasion. Then next, it came to finding the wedding venue. There were a small handful of places that we went to look at for the wedding venues. I really liked the idea of getting married in a church. I thought that was very traditional and very sweet, and I knew in the photos it would be beautiful. So I was looking at churches and like hall combinations. So there were a couple of different options. There was a beautiful church in an inland country town that I really liked. But in the end, it came down to location, and it was just too far for us to all get to. And they had a reception venue that they had there a few years previous, and it burnt down. So it meant that it was just the church, and where you would usually have the reception, there was nothing there. It was like the shell of the reception venue. So that didn't really work. So we didn't end up going with that venue in the end. We ended up having another little look at a hall and church combination. That was so sweet. I loved the color scheme of the burgundy and cream. The hall was kind of the perfect size, and we were thinking we were going to have about 90 guests. Just an estimation. We hadn't sent off any invitations or anything, but we thought probably 90 guests. It might be a little bit squishy, but I think they'd fit in the hall. But the church that was on the same property was way too small. I think it only held like 3 rows of people, and it was quite a narrow church. So we just weren't gonna be able to get our guests in there. They'd have to be lined up outside and not even see like the actual ceremony. We decided to not go for that venue. There was another sweet little church that I had my eye on in a seaside town. It was the perfect size. The church was really roomy. The color scheme again was really cute. Yeah, so there was, you know, a grassy area outside the church, and we could have done some sort of undercover, what's it called? A gazebo? It's definitely called something. What's it called? It's something. We could have done that outside, but I guess we kind of thought, oh, no, just that's more organizing and planning. Let's move on. Didn't go with that venue. We went to another very modern venue, which I didn't end up getting any footage of, but it just didn't feel right. Like as we were touring the place, like it was beautiful and very beautiful for other people's weddings, but it just didn't feel like me, and it didn't feel like our wedding was gonna be there. So yeah, didn't go with that. And then the last place that we ended up looking at, and the one that we ended up deciding on, was a beautiful A&I hall. This one was in a sweet little town called Bangalore, and it was really lovely. It had like the pressed metal in there. It was like a beautiful teal color and cream, and it was huge. Like it was bigger than what we needed. So we thought, you know what, it might be too big, but maybe we can try and condense it down and it will end up being the perfect size. And my father-in-law actually knows the guy that runs the place, so it was just kind of like we'd put down a verbal, yes, that's booked in for our wedding, even though we hadn't paid for it. We got the hall sorted pretty early on, and then we just needed somewhere to get married. So we decided to stay within that same town, and literally a couple of houses down the street, there was a little church. We ended up going and meeting the minister a little bit later on. I don't have any footage of any of this. Things just kind of sped on through. I tried to take phone footage where I could. My camera was completely out of space, so a lot of the stuff that I filmed has just been on my phone. But yeah, we went and met with the minister and got to see the inside of the church, and it was just beautiful. I could just see it, the beautiful LED light through the windows, like the altar. It was just really lovely. Once we decided on our venue, it was time to decide on the wedding invitations and the save the dates and what sort of style we wanted to go for that. I went through so many different rabbit holes of what sort of style that I wanted for the wedding invitations. I just spent hours online on Pinterest trying to find something that just seemed like James and I, and that was timeless and vintage, and yeah, something that was just us. I found a little design of a gazebo with like bushes around it, and I really liked that. And then I thought, how can I make this our wedding? And I was like, let's draw the church. So I drew the church, And then I kind of took that idea of having the bushes around it, because it just looked very cozy and like nestled amongst the trees. It was all done in pencil, so that when I scanned it, it was very, very light. So I had to make sure that I went over it in a darker pen, and then of course doing a bit of shading to kind of make it pop a little bit. And then I created our save the dates. I sent the save the dates digitally. Why can't I say that? I've got no idea, because I thought it was just a bit easier to get it out ASAP to everyone. And then I made sure to source everyone's addresses so that for the actual invitations they could all be paper, because I just think that's so lovely. And I'm someone that loves stationery. I think that's so nice for everyone to have that wedding invitation. And you know, I don't know whether people usually throw away wedding invitations, but you know, if it's nice enough, maybe it'll be kept. When I ended up doing the invitations at a later stage, there was so much involved. It wasn't just, oh, this is my design, yes company, please print off my wedding invitations or like design something for me. No, I had to create my own design. I had to do the drawing for it. And then I was like, well, I'm not paying for a company to like charge me hundreds plus, maybe even $1,000. I saw some ridiculous prices out there for the cost of wedding invitations, and I was like, that's just not happening, no way. So I went out and got my paper that I really liked, but it was in an A4 size. I wanted my invitations half the size. So it meant going through, making sure everything was scented, going through cutting everything perfectly. Then James helped me create a QR code. So we'd flipped the invitations around and had to make sure our QR code was scented on the back of the invitation so that people could RSVP through there rather than having to send paper RSVPs back. I made an exception for some of the guests which I thought might prefer to send a paper RSVP. This has taken way too long to perfect, but I've got the proper invitation on the front, and then I'm trying to do the RSVP on the back, but put it on a spot so that when I fold it, it's perfectly placed in the middle. So I think I've got it. I'm just gonna fold it and see how it goes. I've gone through so many paper copies just to try and line it up right, and I keep getting it wrong. So I think I've done it. Let's see how we go. And to make it even more confusing, the Word document prints off on the opposite angle. So even though the document has the church facing this way, it comes out of the printer facing this way. So I just have to remember that it's opposite. I don't want the RSVP on the back to be upside down. So I've got to put this in opposite and then make sure that I put it in that way, and hopefully this is going to turn out. Fingers crossed. This is a little bit nerve-wracking. So we've got the RSVP here with the QR code. I've made sure that I've repeated both of those with the RSVP closer to the top of the page. So this is upside down as well compared to that. It's all the right way up when you fold this, even though this is upside down on here. Please. The back of this paper is a little bit textured as well, so I just hope it's gonna turn out. Oh my gosh, it looks so good, it looks so good. I have to make sure that it dries. I don't want to fold anything while it's still wet. It looks so good. Oh, and it's the right way. Oh, that's so exciting. Yay! We spent so long doing that, cutting the invitations, folding them so neatly, and then, you know, it's not just done with that. I had to do a wax seal as well. So I went out and got my little wax seal tubs. I think I paid $10 for a little jar. Didn't even use that whole thing. And yeah, it was lovely in the end. After we'd folded it, done our little wax seal, and then put it in the envelope, and then, you know, writing in a really beautiful running writing on the front for their name, and then our names on the back. Yeah, it was a process for the invitations, and because it was really just me when I was at home while James was at work, I was folding, waxing, doing everything. It did take a while, and so I was sending out the invitations in batches. Like, I couldn't get through them all. There was just so many. So, you know, I'd send like 15 at a time. But in the end, I got through it. You know, it might have been a tiny little bit late, but it was better late than never. So as I was saying, all the different tasks, the 101 other tasks that I created myself for the wedding, one of them was making the bridesmaids' dresses. So after I decided that I would buy my dress, I still had that itch. I want to create something that's perfect for our wedding. I want to make the bridesmaids' dresses. And oh my gosh, what an ordeal that was. It's so funny being able to film this after the wedding, after the fact, and all the hoops and jumps that we went through. But you know, like if I was filming this on the go, I would have been so optimistic. Oh yep, we're gonna make the bridesmaids dresses, it's gonna go great. Like, oh, you know, like come along with me on this journey. Oh my gosh, we're on the other side of it. The bridesmaids dresses were done in the end. The plan for the bridesmaids dresses was pastel. Originally I wanted, you know, each bridesmaid in a different color, in the really, you know, soft hues of the yellow and the pink and the blue and the purple or whatever, drawing inspiration from the 30s, 40s and 50s, because that seemed like that's what they did in a lot of the colorized photos, and it looked beautiful. So I was hoping on doing that. I went to the fabric store and found some of those beautiful colors that worked really well together, but unfortunately they were really thin. So that meant that I was going to need multiple layers of that fabric, and then that was just going to cost more, and it wasn't the fabric that I wanted. I wanted a thicker, nicer fabric. So in the end, that thicker fabric we got in like a pink, like a blush color, and I was going to enlist her help with the dresses. In the end, we chose a butterscotch and a pink, and they worked really, really well together. I found the perfect 1940s pattern. It wasn't a bridesmaid dress pattern, but it just worked very well. I think it was like an evening dress. I was gonna do the longer version to the floor with the zip at the side. I then got started and I laid out this butterscotch fabric all the way across the floor, had my pattern pieces ready, cutting everything out, and I started to put it together. I'm not the fastest sewer, and because I've got a nursing job, I couldn't just dedicate all of my time to putting this dress together. In the end, I kind of just kept procrastinating and putting it off, and I was like, oh, you know, like it's fine, I'm just gonna get through it. And it started to get to the point where I was kind of running out of time, and I'm like, I need help with this. We printed off another repeat of the pattern. I gave that to my sister and she started helping me out. She did a mock-up of the dresses in another fabric. It looked really beautiful, but we were having an issue with the front, with how it was falling underneath the diamond around the waist. It was just puckered and not sitting right. So yeah, we started running into issues. The dress was only one size and we had 4 different size bridesmaids. So in the end, we were trying to like pattern size and like alter this pattern to the 4 different sizes that we needed. And that's actually much more complicated than it seems. Like you have to know what you're doing with a pattern and how to alter patterns. And that was neither myself or my sister. In the end, we ended up like half doing the dresses and then running out of time. And my mum was like, girls, you can't do this, you know, poor April, my sister, she was so stressed, and she's got a little toddler as well to care for. So mum was like, you need to get it done by a professional. I know this lady, she's just sewed me some stuff, go take it to her, get her to finish it off for you. What a blessing that was, that lady was just ready to jump in and finish those dresses within like, I don't even know whether it was a month, less than a month before the wedding. And I was like, oh my gosh, the bridesmaids are gonna be without dresses, like this is terrible. That seamstress was amazing for being able to finish off those bridesmaids dresses with like almost no time. And I think she ended up having to pretty much reconstruct all of the dresses because we must have done a really bad job. But anyway, they got made in the end and they were beautiful. I had another ambitious idea for our wedding. You know, besides making the bridesmaids dresses and doing all the wedding invitations, there was just another thing that I wanted to do. You know, I just wanted to do the flowers for our wedding. Just a small task. My dad is a retired florist, so I knew that I had him on my side to be able to help pull it all together. But you know, a huge undertaking really to think about doing all the flowers for a wedding. Like that's a huge deal. And the reason why I wanted to do that was obviously because I love being creative. I like arranging flowers, and the biggest thing of all was I just couldn't believe the cost of flowers for weddings. So I was like, I'm just gonna skip that. I'm gonna do the flowers myself. But Dad did tell me, he's like, Sage, I'm not doing all the flowers for the wedding. He's gonna be too stressed. I'm gonna be too stressed. It just wasn't gonna happen. We weren't gonna be able to do it all. So he said, get your bouquets done professionally, get all the buttonholes, all of the corsages, don't worry about that. Get that, just hand it over to someone else for them to do, and then we can do the venue flowers. So I was like, I'm happy with that, let's do it. And so I started experimenting, taking lots of inspiration from pictures, from old pictures that I'd seen. There wasn't a lot of venue flowers, there was mainly all of the beautiful bouquets that the girls would have. So I was just kind of, you know, coming at it with my own creative style. I loved how dainty and wispy the ferns in all of the arrangements that the brides would have. So I wanted to take inspiration from that in the table arrangements, and we ended up deciding that we were going to have round tables. I mean, I went back and forth quite a lot between rectangular, round, rectangular, round. Anyway, we ended up deciding on round tables, and so I started creating some arrangements in florist foam. I ended up going around the farm, cutting foliage, experimenting with different ferns, and then buying lilies because I loved how common lilies were in all of the old photographs. So I thought, you know, this is going to be my flower. I ended up finding these beautiful lilies from a farm that were like, I might have even paid $5 for them, $5 for a bunch, but normally they cost around $10 for a bunch from this place. And I was just like, this is so amazing. Our flowers are gonna cost us nothing. So I was over the moon and started to put together this arrangement, and it turned out so beautiful. I was very, very happy with it. But the downside was the ferns, they were kind of hit and miss. Some of the ferns would die and some of them would last. We didn't want to end up preparing these arrangements days before the wedding and then on the actual wedding day they will be dead. We instead picked some really wispy and beautiful different types of foliage for the arrangements in the end. We put together the greenery and the foliage for the arrangements earlier on in the week, and our wedding was on the Saturday. So we just kept that watered and ready so it was fresh for the day. The day before the wedding, that's when we went and collected all of the beautiful lilies. The lilies that we ended up getting from this one farm, they didn't end up having any of the plain white lilies left. The lilies they had like a slight pink hue, but that ended up being perfect. It was really, really beautiful. As soon as I bought the flowers from the little farm, as they started to open up, because it was quite warm weather, I had to make sure that I was removing all of the stamen so that it wouldn't kind of just tint everything orange in the flowers. So I'm removing all of these stamen a couple of days before the wedding, and you know, just trying to get everything ready, make sure everything's perfect. Yeah, I think it ended up being around the same price, $10 for a bunch of lilies, and I think there was about like 9 or 10 lilies per bunch. So it went a really long way, and for each of the table arrangements we had 3 or 4 lilies and then just like all of the greenery around, and it was really, really beautiful. Dad did some gorgeous higher pieces which we had behind us in the church on either side. I really didn't have any footage from the day before the wedding. We did so much on that day, getting the hall ready, getting the church ready. And I just don't have any footage. Like I was running around doing so much the day before the wedding, and the day of the wedding, like, oh my gosh, I was running around like a headless chicken. I still had so much to do. To give you an idea of how full on the day of the wedding was, I was up at like 6 in the morning because I had a couple of alterations that I needed to do to my dress that I wasn't able to finish the day before because of everything that was going on the day before. So I was up at 6 a.m. the day of our wedding, sewing my dress. I did it in the end, I did it, but like the stress that I put myself through and long list of things that I create for myself, and like I do work well under pressure, but like that's just shocking, the day of the wedding. So the day before the wedding, Dad and I were there. I was in my overalls. We're like putting all the flowers in, like making sure it's all beautiful. And you know, we've got our secateurs out, we're like cutting everything. And the people that were setting up the hall, they were putting all the beautiful drapes on the ceiling. The day after the wedding, when they came to clean up and they saw me and they saw James, and they're like, oh, congratulations. And then they looked at me and they were like, oh, were you the one that was getting married? I thought you were the florist. Which was so funny because, you know, like I was not glamorous or anything the day before. I wasn't, you know, like getting my manicure or anything. I was in the thick of it. We were there getting everything ready, doing the flowers, making sure the hall was perfect. Yeah, so funny. Even though I found it very stressful and felt like I had a lot to do, we would not have been able to have our wedding and would not have been able to do everything we did without my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law pulled us through this whole journey. If she wasn't there, we wouldn't have had the wedding we did. She was all guns blazing. She, you know, made sure things happened and like helped with table arrangements, and she just made everything come to fruition, and really gave us a kick in the ass in the end, because, you know, when it's your first time doing something like this, you're not sure, and, you know, as I said, I'm very good at being last minute, and that doesn't always work when it comes to planning a wedding. So yeah, Liz was amazing, and she really gave us a kick in the bum and helped make this wedding possible and made it a beautiful wedding. I will forever be grateful for my beautiful mother-in-law. You know, I'm just so grateful for everyone that helped make the wedding possible, the family members that put money towards the wedding, you know, for the catering, for the band, for people that gave their time to preparing for the wedding, for the flowers for dad, just everyone that was involved. Like, I'm just beyond so grateful that everyone could help and make it the wedding that it was. Another thing that I wanted to organize was I wanted a beautiful vintage car to take me to the wedding and for us to have photos in after. But another thing that I was having problems with, where we are in the country, our closest city is like 2 to 3 hours away. As soon as you're near a city, you have more options for everything, including car hire. So where we are, we just didn't have that many options, and we'd have to get a car, like an old car, to drive all the way from the closest city, and that was just going to cost too much money, and then only have them for, you know, a couple hours. Just ended up being like between like $1,000 and $2,000, and I just didn't want to pay that for a car. I ended up reaching out to a vintage car club. I was hoping that we could rent out one of the beautiful old cars from the owners there, and in the end we decided to not go with that. You know, we were going to pay like $500, I think, for one of these lovely old cars, but in the end, you know, that's a gamble in itself. You know, if they've never done anything like that, you know, are they going to show up on time? What if something happens, like there's no contract or anything that you're signing? So there were too many possibilities of things going wrong. We decided to not go down that path, and I ended up finding another beautiful old car. I think it was a 1960s pink EK, and it was gorgeous, and it actually went really well because it matched the bridesmaids' dresses, so it went very well with the wedding color theme. The lady that drove the car was beautiful. She had all the right old music playing when she came to pick us up. Like, it ended up being a really lovely experience, so I'm very happy we went with her. Another thing to organize was organizing the band, and there was lots of back and forth about, like, you know, I wanted something that was a bit old school, something that was going to go with our wedding, but also, you know, stuff that everyone wants to dance to as well. We went back and forth quite a bit, but we ended up deciding on, I think it was like a 5 or a 6 piece band, and they were really great in the end. They had everything. They had a singer, a drummer, a guitarist, a pianist. It was really lovely in the end. They played a lot of old music and also some modern stuff too. And then for the wedding cake, I knew I wanted something very traditional. I had saved so many gorgeous Pinterest images of 1940s wedding cakes. I just think they're so gorgeous, and I loved the tiered cakes. I loved the way that they would style the icing. And something that I also really liked is that, you know, a traditional wedding cakes in England anyway were fruitcake. So I really wanted to have a fruitcake and have it, you know, multi-tiered and probably round. I really liked that. And so I reached out to a bakery. So I reached out to her and asked whether they would do a fruitcake for the wedding. She said they don't make fruitcakes. So obviously I didn't go with that bakery. And I was thinking, like, you know, how am I going to do this? I'd, you know, really like a fruitcake. I could make it myself. Don't make it yourself, Sage. You've already got so many things to do. And I ended up going in the same town that we were planning on getting married in, and going to the CWA, which is the Country Women's Association. There were these little ladies at the end sitting down doing their knitting, and Mom and I walked in and asked, you know, do you know anyone that makes fruitcakes who's a part of the CWA? We're hoping that someone will be able to do a fruitcake for my wedding. And the ladies were like, come back in, you know, 10 minutes and we'll have a little think. And we came back and they'd written a list of a couple of people that could do a fruitcake for us. So I contacted the first lady on the list, spoke to her on the phone, and she's like, yeah, absolutely. You know, I'll just do it for the cost of ingredients. 3-4 tiers, you know, whatever I wanted. And like, it was just surreal that, you know, we'd reached out to someone and, you know, pretty much out of the goodness of her heart, she was like, yeah, I'd love to make your wedding cake. I don't want you to charge me for anything, just the cost of ingredients. And like, that was so beautiful. It just felt like a community effort in the end, being able to do things ourselves and having someone local to do all of these little things. Yeah, it was really beautiful. One thing Margaret, the cake lady, said though is, I don't ice the cakes. You're gonna have to find someone who will ice this fruit cake for you. So, you know, she told me to go and have a look at like a cake decorating supply shop, having a look online who goes to buy their supplies. So I went down a rabbit hole of going and looking at this cake decorating place and finding the different people that buy from this supplier. And in the end, I found this man's email called Greg, and I emailed him, didn't get a response back, and I was thinking, this is a dead end. I'm gonna have a plain fruit cake for the wedding. It's not even gonna be iced at this point. And so then a while later, he sends an email back saying, oh, you know, like, sorry, I was away on holiday. Call me back on this number. And so I called him. It was just a surreal conversation, because sometimes when you meet people, if you speak to them on the phone, they're like a different person than if you see them in real life. And this cake decorator, Greg, was like that. He, you know, I'd never met him before, and on the phone, he was like making all these jokes, but I didn't know whether he was being, like, whether he was serious or not. And so I was so confused. He was very sarcastic, and I wasn't picking up on any of the stuff that he was saying. I thought he was like really serious, but he was just having a joke the whole time. And it wasn't until I met him that I was like, oh, I understand who you are now. And he's just the funniest man that I've met. And yeah, just, he had such a cool story. He was like, yep, I'll ice your cake, get it to me, you know, the week before your wedding. I'll give it to you the day before the wedding. I'm actually retired. I don't ice cakes anymore, but I'll do it for you. It was just so sweet how everything ended up. Greg, the cake decorator, was just so lovely, hilarious, sarcastic, one of a kind. And you know, he's a farmer. Like, was he a sugarcane farmer? He's like a good old Australian farmer, but he loves making cakes and decorating cakes, which is just like such a stark contrast. But yeah, in the end, he did such a beautiful job. It was the most beautiful cake, and I'm just so happy that we ended up getting the cake done by the CWA and it decorated by this man. It was just so lovely. I found a beautiful 1940s cake topper, which I just fell in love with, and once I found the right one, I just bought it straight away. It was definitely under $100, and in a lot of the photos they had like a beautiful little, like a halo or a heart around the couple, and you know, lace and like bells and stuff like that. And I couldn't find any of the wedding couples with all of that was still in good condition, so I just got the couples by themselves, and then I was like, I'm just gonna make the thing that goes around it. So I did. I made it out of wire, and I made like a little base, bound it with ribbon, put the bells on top, put lace on it. It ended up working really well, and Greg put it on top of the cake and kind of set it all in with the flowers there. He made lots of jokes about my DIY cake topper. He thought it was hilarious. He thought it had budgie bells on it. Thanks, Greg. But I think it ended up looking really nice. And for the table decorating, we did a special little napkin fold. I got some beautiful green ribbon and we tied that around all of the napkins. We then did our little menu cards that went into the napkins, and that was also like the name card plus the menu. I did want to do my own design for that too, but at the point where we were so close to the wedding, I just didn't have any time to sit down and be creative, and I think James jumped straight into it and he found a pretty design, and he's like, let's do this, like we're running out of time. So yeah, James actually chose the style for the menu cards, but of course, you know, the paper that we chose had to be cut in half. We had some of our wedding guests here the week of the wedding, and they were all helping out. Tim and Lucy, our really close friends, were here a week before the wedding, and you know, they're out at the dining table. It was like a little make line, and you know, cutting everything, making sure it's perfect, putting it all together, categorizing it into, you know, who's on what table. We were so lucky for all the help that we got from everyone that was staying here. And for the seating plan, I created my own design, put everyone into the different tables that they'd be on, and then I went and got that printed off on quite a large size so that I could then fit it into this beautiful little frame that I found. I found this frame about like 6 months before at the tip shop, and I bought it not knowing exactly what I wanted to do with it, but I knew that it could work well for something for the wedding. In the end, yeah, we got the seating plan printed out, and then we had to figure out how to cut it to the unusual shape on the top of the frame. And there was so much fiddling, literally like a couple of days before the wedding, trying to figure out how to get this in, make it perfect. Lucy, our friend, was a huge help in pulling it all together. And for the table numbers, I didn't want to do any old pre-done template. I wanted to do it myself, so I watercolored the table numbers, and I did that with Lucy's help too, and we decided on a nice green that tied in really well, going with the ribbons, going with the foliage in the middle. And yeah, so we had all of our watercolor table numbers. These were all the things that were happening like the lead up to the wedding, and this was also something that happened the lead up to the wedding. I wanted to do the bridesmaid's hair. I didn't want to go out and hire a hairdresser, someone to come here to do the bridesmaid's hair in a style that I maybe wouldn't be happy with. So I was like, I know I can do a style that I'll really like and it will really suit the girls with their dresses. So I was like, yep, I'm taking on this task. So I did a couple of hair trials and did some different styles on my sister and the other bridesmaids. One of the bridesmaids, Lily, her hair was quite short, so it was actually really hard to, because I was kind of doing a style where you would sweep it up at the back, and her hair was just too short to pull back. In the end, I decided to do a couple of hair trials with her, and I got her to come over. I pin curled her hair and then got her to go sleep on it at home and then come back, and I brushed it out to test it, and it looked gorgeous. Like, it was really cool. It looks like she stepped straight out of the 1950s. That's what we did the night before the wedding. The night before the wedding, she came over, I pin curled her hair, she went home, and then the next day when we're all here, all the bridesmaids getting ready together, I brushed out her hair and it just looked so beautiful. I was so happy with how it turned out. And then the other girls, we just did updos for them. I made little flower combs for the girls. So I bought these sweet little white flowers and then just kind of fixed them, wound them up onto the side of the hair comb. So that was like something that slid into the side of the hair or in the back, and that turned out really nice. I wanted to do a pretty headpiece for myself, something that would be at the front, like almost like a little, either a flower crown or some sort of beaded like tiara almost, and then having the veil behind that. I found some really beautiful pictures of the style of headdress for the time. I have a night shift tonight that I've called in sick for. I feel awful, really and truly awful, but the wedding is still creeping up and I've got things to do. I wanted to do a little headpiece, a little mother of pearl beaded crown that was very popular in the 1940s, and I found some really gorgeous pictures and I just want to do it. It just looks so nice. So I went ahead and bought some wire. I've got some headbands, ribbon, and the little teardrop pearls and flowers that I'm going to add on. I actually found a lady that makes these on Etsy. Beautiful, but you know, expensive because it's going to take time to put together and it's labor intensive. And so I found her beautiful crowns for $260, but I'm at the point where I'm like, I can make something like this. I'm a creative person, I can do this. So I've gone ahead and purchased everything, and I'm gonna try and have a go at making it and see how I go. I think without that, my wedding outfit would not have looked so nice without that pretty crown. And then I borrowed my mother-in-law's veil, and that was the perfect length. It all turned out so well in the end. And I feel like there's so much to tell from the actual wedding day, but I'm just gonna maybe leave that for another time. It's really confusing trying to put all of these things together that I feel like I started at one point and finished at another point and started all this stuff in the middle. So I hope that this kind of made sense. We're so happy with how the wedding day panned out. It was beautiful, and I'll treasure the moment standing up and getting married to James, how we felt getting married. Like, it was so beautiful, and yeah, I couldn't have been happier with how the wedding turned out. There were lots of little mishaps that happened along the way, but you know, I think it was all for the better. Like, it was beautiful in the end. Yeah, it was such a lovely day, and I hope I was able to explain the planning of the wedding. I know it was a little bit all over the place. Hello lady, you want to come up? Hang on, I'll bring you up. Come on, up. Come on. Oh, you're not quite up. There you go. There you go, baby. I was about to sign off. I was about to turn off the camera, but I forgot. These were the things that were happening the day of the wedding. It was one of my bridesmaids, Becky, that did this beautiful S and J. So this is the little box that we had our rings in. I had my nephew give us this little box at the front. That's what we took our rings out of and got married. Again, the little box I painted. It was just a cardboard box. I painted it and put the heart on the front. So you can kind of see up close a little bit. This was my wedding headpiece. All of the pearls are kind of going in different directions, but it was really, really pretty. And then this is like the show and tell at the end. I got a beautiful guest book made for me. It says Sage and James and the date of our wedding on the 19th of October. And then, yeah, we just had everyone sign it, and it's just so nice again to go through and look at everyone's messages. It's really beautiful. And we've actually, someone got a bit of cake stuck in there, which is really funny. Forever in this book. After I got engaged, I ended up going online and trying to find some old vintage like bridal books and like advice and stuff like that, and I ended up getting this beautiful one, To the Bride, and it just has the prettiest cover on the inside. And that was actually one of the I wanted to take one of the motifs from here and potentially use that for our wedding invitation, but in the end I didn't end up going with it. That could have been really cute, going with some of the doves that are flying. So in here they've got a bit of everything. They've got To the Bride, the care and feeding of young husbands. I think that's so funny. They've got you and your kitchen. I think like usually back then when you had your registry of things that you wanted, all the different things to request for, you know, menu, recipes, like all the recipes that, you know, you're learning for the first time, you know, you're learning to cook for someone, and like just really, really cute. And I actually haven't made any of the recipes in here, but I'm looking forward to it. I think it's really sweet. It's just lovely to have a little time capsule like this. It's nice. It's, you know, we live in a very, very different world now. So it's nice taking a trip back in time and having a read of some of these things. A subscriber sent me this little book, What to Do at Weddings, a guide in detail. So it goes through courtship, arranging the wedding, invitations, presents, duties of the bridesmaids, duties of the best man, the ceremony, etc. And that's a really, really sweet book as well. I've had a really fun time reading this. On quite a lot of evenings I would just sit down and I'd have like this tiny little book and I'm in bed just, you know, going through and reading. Oh, it's just very sweet. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this made sense and I hope it wasn't all over the place. It's really nice to be back making videos, and the next video that you'll all see will be the wedding, which I'm very excited to share with you. It's lovely that you've all been able to meet Lady now as well, and yeah, I look forward to chatting with you all here in the comments. Please tell me how you're all going. It feels like forever since we've caught up. So yeah, lots of love. Bye. I've got 5 hours. I should definitely do this in 5 hours. Good golly. No boogers. 38 minutes I've been talking for. Jeepers. Oh my gosh, I'm sweating. I'm sweating. Oh.